Hello everyone, welcome to the Jacksonville History Show. I'm Harry Reagan. This show is about the Navy. Later, an update on efforts to bring the USS Charles F. Adams back to Jacksonville, Florida's first naval ship museum. But first we focus on the 75th anniversary of NAS Jax. And our guests are Captain Howard Wanamaker, Commander of NAS, and Ron Williams, Safety Manager at NAS and unofficial historian. Welcome both of you to the Jacksonville History Show.
Thank you, sir.
Well, people say all the time, and I guess y'all would confirm this, Jacksonville is a Navy town. The Navy is very important to Jacksonville, and I suppose that over the years that's been demonstrated in various ways. City government has done things to make the Navy at home.
Yes, sir. Oh, definitely. The support we receive from the city of Jacksonville and the surrounding counties has been fantastic in their support to us.
And it's a very important part of the economy.
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah. Over $2.5 billion to the economy is what the estimates are annually.
And we want to talk about the history of NAS tonight. And let's start by taking a look at, right here on the table, we've got aircraft representing the first aircraft and the latest thing that will be out there. So tell us a little bit about how it's evolved in terms of the mission and the aircraft and so forth.
Okay. Right.
Well, it started out there as a flight training base, and that was the basic mission of Naval Air Station Jacksonville when it was commissioned back in 1940. It became NAS Jacksonville to learn how to fly. And the very first plane that you learned to fly in was that yellow N2S Stearman.
There it is.
We have an actual Stearman on display in our static park, matter of fact, in the middle of the park there. So you'd spend time learning how to fly in that plane, then you'd move on to a little more advanced training plane, and from there you'd branch out into the direction you wanted to go to, patrol aircraft, fighter aircraft, and so on.
But let's go ahead and look at the current aircraft. Quite a bit of difference.
Oh, yes, sir. Definitely. A 737 airframe, the P-8 Poseidon. Its mission is maritime surveillance, has a multi-mission function for this platform. When it's all said and done, there'll be about 54 airframes there on the line at Jacksonville. We do still train pilots and NFOs. VP-30, the Navy's largest squadron, is based there. And we've got about 5 total, with a possible 6 coming on for squadrons that'll be there and hangared in one of the largest hangars the Navy has, 511, that's there on the base.
And surveillance, primarily submarines? Is that?
Yeah, yes, sir. It's NAS Jacksonville. If you come in, you'll see the sign there, the Master ASW Base, Anti-Submarine Warfare. That's its mission. And they deploy, in fact, we have 2 squadrons deployed right now out there, and typically the last P3 squadron, as a matter of fact, VP-26, and its historic last P3 deployment has happened, and upon their return they'll be decommed and be replaced. Their aircraft will be placed with the P-8s.
So some of our adversaries, or potential adversaries, have submarines, and we want to know where they are and what they're doing, I guess,
Definitely.
as
Yes,
much
sir.
as possible.
Yes, sir.
And that's what your guys are doing.
Definitely. They also, along with the SH-60 Romeos. So we'll have 5 total, those squadrons, one of which will be a reserve squadron, and their specialty is also is to hunt submarines.
Well, turning back to history, what can you tell us about what happened to make it possible for an NAS to come to Jacksonville in 1940?
It's kind of an interesting story. Jacksonville decided that they wanted some type of base here in Jacksonville about 1935. And the Army Air Corps at the time put out a plan to develop a base in the southeast. So Jacksonville decided, we're going to try to see if we can get that. They tried very hard, but they failed, and that's what's MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa today. But Jacksonville learned a whole bunch of lessons on what they need to do if the chance comes up again.
Having lost that
one. So the Navy formed the Hepburn Board to look for a place for a base in the southeast United States, and Jacksonville decided this time we're really going to go for it. So the Hepburn Board was formed. They went and visited cities in the southeast, Miami, Charleston, Savannah, a bunch of cities, Jacksonville, And it was coming down looking like Miami was going to be the site of the base. But our Jacksonville politicians were pretty crafty back then. So they actually sent some folks down to Miami, ran ads in the Miami papers down there that said, you don't want this base located in Miami for the following reasons. It's going to be noisy, it's going to degrade your property values, and here's a nice little form in the bottom of the paper that you can cut out to send to the commission that's going to meet, telling them you don't want it here. And by God, a lot of people in Miami cut the petition out and sent it in.
Wow.
So by the time the board met, they were going, looks like Miami doesn't want the base down there. So Jacksonville became the front runner, and we never left, and we were awarded the base.
That's really interesting. And they, it seems to me, may have exaggerated the negative aspects of having a Navy base.
I'm sure they did a little bit, but that's politics, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I want to have us take a look at some photos and things. So let's, you tell me what we're looking at as we get these on
Well, that's
camera.
our flight line at NAS Jacksonville. That picture's not real old, probably about 8-10 years old. T-45s come out of other bases in Meridian where they do train pilots, and they fly off the coast of Jacksonville to get their carrier landing qualifications there, learning to fly jets. So for a while, they're based here at NAS Jacksonville, and sometimes they use the field out at Cecil Field also to put planes out there even today. But that's a good picture of the amount of training jets that come and visit base. And we have a lot of aircraft that use the base today for training missions.
And we couldn't do this show without showing you this one.
No, that's Ronald Reagan when he was just a fledgling movie star. Came in here in the early 50s there to visit patients at the Naval Hospital, Jacksonville.
And maybe not quite as famous as Ronald Reagan, but...
No, it's Congresswoman Tilly Fowler. She was a big supporter of the Navy her entire time. I don't know if a lot of folks are aware of it, but she came very close there to becoming the Secretary of the Navy, in fact.
Yes, she did.
And
she was an outstanding city council
She was
person.
there for Jacksonville for a long time. That was a visit to the base, and one of the helicopter squadrons knew she was coming and put her name on the side of the helo for her.
I served with her, and very nice
That's
to know.
back in the days for assembly and repair shops, what a lot of people probably know as the NARF or the NADEP, Fleet Readiness Center Southeast today. That's the ladies in the fabric wing shop. All the wings, such as that Stearman, had fabric wings, and that's them sewing the surfaces on one of the wings in the shop there to repair the aircraft.
Very nice.
We were also a seaplane base. You learned to fly seaplanes, and that's one of the reasons the base was located on the St. Johns River. So that plane there is a picture of a PBY seaplane there with Jacksonville markings on the side of the plane there, getting ready to be beached at the base.
None of that exists nowadays? No.
We have the same piers out there on the base. We don't do seaplane training anymore because the Navy's out of the seaplane business.
Okay.
But you can see the piers where the planes used to taxi in and out. That's the first helicopter arrived at NAS Jacksonville back in 1944. So I don't think folks think we had helicopters that early, but we did. And of course, we have helicopters based at the base today.
Yeah. All right.
There's a great early shot of the 2nd Blue Angels team flying the F-AF Bearcat at NAS Jacks. I think everybody in Jacksonville probably knows by now that the team was formed at Jacks.
Exactly.
46. They stayed there until late 48, and then the Naval Air Operational Training Command moved the team to the other training base, Corpus Christi, Texas.
And this history would not be complete without mentioning the Blue Angels.
No, they've been a huge part of NAS Jacksonville. We've had a lot of the original members and the original foreign team that formed them back to the base. Another shot people probably aren't aware of, but we used to have a very big baseball stadium located on NAS Jacksonville. As a matter of fact, one of the guys that was stationed at the base there in World War II was Ted Williams. So I think that became pretty cool to go out to a game there at the base and see Ted Williams playing, but apparently he was at the base for a short time.
Well, a lot of people don't know maybe that Ted Williams, a major part of his career was his Navy.
It was Navy. It was Navy.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
And who knows if he hadn't served in the Navy, his baseball career would have been even more spectacular.
Well, that and football, all the services academies had football teams because a lot of them drafted great football players that were coming out of college, and a couple of them that were going to back then, what is the NFL today? The program you're holding up there, Harry, is the program from Naval Air Station Jacksonville playing the University of Florida there in 1942.
Now, there's a fact that very few people know probably.
Yeah. And unfortunately, University of Florida beat us by
They did.
7
That
points.
was just one game, one season?
One game, one season.
Yeah.
I know they played them at least that one season. I heard they played them in 43. I just haven't researched that yet. I'd see. But that's a pretty rare program right there for University of Florida football fans.
Well, it's fascinating history, and you're to be commended for preserving it because, as we well know, not everybody thinks in terms of, just people don't think in terms of preserving their own history, making sure that those photographs are labeled properly and dated and so forth so that their heirs can know some things about the family.
Yeah, we've had, I'll give you one good instance of that. As a matter of fact, we put some pictures up in the Currents of Time exhibit at the Mosh, and one of them is a line of twin-engine planes with the folks standing in front of it. Some lady recognized that was a picture of her father that they did not have. And the museum called the base and asked if she wanted a copy of that very badly, so we reproduced that and mailed it out to her so she would have that photo, because they had no pictures remaining of their father in the military. So she was very touched by that.
And I think on the website there was a spot where you encourage people who may have old photos and so forth to get in touch with you. You'd like to have them.
Yeah, we'd like to get them so we can scan them and add them to our historical files and keep record of that kind of stuff. So we think we got a pretty good collection. We started out with very few in 1989, but we probably have about 1,000 historic photos of the base now, and patches and quite a bit of information. So we focus on history, and that's the past, but what about the future?
Oh, the future is very bright for NAS Jacksonville. As we just talked about earlier for the P-8 Triton and the SH-60 Romeos, we have unmanned aircraft. In the control of them will be in the maintenance.
And we're pretty sure that's going to be what's coming, right?
Oh, yes, sir. We have so you have the MQ-4, which is the Triton. It's an unmanned, very large aircraft, an airframe that can do the same sort of missions as the P-8, maritime surveillance, an ISR mission. It can also provide BDA, and it can have long station times that are out there and provide the maritime commander some very important information. That facility, the control of that, the Triton Mission Control Center is being built right now, and we should have the ribbon cutting here in a few more months, and that will open up. Where that will base, those aircraft will base, it could be anywhere in the world, not necessarily Jacksonville. The other, we have the Fire Scout, and NAS Jacksonville will maintain these unmanned helicopters. It's basically what it is, a smaller version of the SH-60, and provide the same exact missions that the manned helicopters can provide, flying off of the ships that are out there that are aircraft capable, and provide a long sustained unmanned more information back to the maritime commander and what.
So you'll still need pilots, but they won't be on the planes or the helicopters.
That's right.
So.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So the Mission Control Center will open up here at NAS Jacksonville.
And I think the average person who lives in Jacksonville may drive by the base and just not appreciate how big it is and what it's all about.
Sure.
We were saying before the show that it's like a little town.
It is.
It's got everything that it's kind of self-contained.
It is. Yes, sir. 3,800 acres. Like I said before, we have everything a small city would have other than a library and a base theater. Those are the only two things.
And they can find those very conveniently off base.
They can. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. We also encompass outlying field White House, one of only 2 fields on the East Coast that pilots can go to train. The other's Fentress up in Chesapeake.
Yeah, briefly, people may not know what that's all about.
Yes, sir. Out west, very close to Cecil Airfield, we have an outlying field that has a lit carrier box. So basically an area on the ground that's lit up that resembles an aircraft carrier at night. And pilots can go out there and practice their landings before they head out to the aircraft carrier and carrier qual.
And there aren't that many places that can be done.
No,
right?
no, sir. Yep, this is one of a few.
Yeah.
One of a few. As you know, NAS Jacksonville is the 3rd largest naval base, and we also have control over 3 ranges to the south: Pine Castle, Rodman, and Lake George. And the air wings along on aircraft carriers off the coast fly missions into these 3 ranges, and Pine Castle is the only place along the East Coast that you can drop live weapons.
Well, Captain Howard Wanamaker and Ron Williams, thank you very much for being with us on the Jacksonville History Show.
Well, thank
You're
you,
welcome.
sir.
And we'll be right back with information about bringing the USS Adams back to Jacksonville.